Hello guys, I'm James for Kit Guru. Welcome back to the channel. If you are a regular here, you might have noticed over the last 5 or 6 months I've been doing some custom builds and modding projects. Today I've been tasked with building a system inside this new Seasonic SYNCRO Q7 case. This is quite an interesting case because it is one of the few that has an inverted layout. So instead of installing everything from this left hand side, you install from the right hand side panel, and the window is on this side as well. Also, the motherboard is kind of upside down, so the graphics card is on the top, CPU at the bottom. So that's an interesting case, and it also gives me a good opportunity to try out some modding techniques that I've not done before. Something that I've wanted to try for a while but never really got round to it is hydro dipping. So the plan today is for you to kind of walk through hydro dipping and kind of see what it's like from the perspective of somebody that is trying it out for the first time. So the plan is to start off small, so I might get some memory modules, dip the heat sinks of the memory modules first, and then work my way up as I build confidence and as I perfect the technique to some bigger parts. So what I want to do eventually is hydro dip this aluminium front panel, and also this bit on the door here as well, and there's also this panel where the Seasonic Connect unit goes. So that is the plan. Whether it'll go to plan or not, we'll find out. So to set up hydro dipping at home, you will have to lay out a little bit of investment to begin with, but it's not an expensive hobby. The film costs about £8 or £10 per running meter. One thing you will need is some kind of tank to start dipping, so I just use these clear plastic storage boxes. Obviously, as the parts get bigger, the tank will need to get bigger as well. You'll also need to invest in some kind of heater because the ideal temperature of the water for hydro dipping is somewhere between 28 and 30 degrees Celsius. So I just bought this 200 watt aquarium heater, and I'll just put that in, let the water heat up to the required temperature, and then take it out before dipping. Safety always comes first at Kit Guru, so you'll need something for protecting your lungs, and some disposable gloves might come in handy as well. You'll also need some basic tools for dismantling any parts, such as screwdrivers and pliers. You'll need something for prepping the parts as well. You need to give them a light rub down or light sanding just to scuff the surface up before applying the paint. And that is what you have to do before applying the film. You have to paint the parts, so you need some primer, and then you'll need some base coat. And with the film we're using, it's a gold carbon, so we'll be using a matte black base coat. Just before dipping into the film, you have to use this Activator spray. What this does is it kind of turns the film from a film into a liquid, so that is essential. And then when you finish dipping, if you want the finished thing to look shiny or to have a glossy finish to it, you'll need some clear lacquer as well. Obviously, you'll also need the parts that you're going to dip. So I've got these memory heat sinks. These are off Corsair Vengeance RGB memory. And then there's the plastic bits of the case, and then that metal front panel. If everything goes to plan, I'll probably try dipping some other bits of the case, maybe the power supply shroud or any other panels that come off. And then there is obviously the film. So this is available in either 1 meter designs or 50 centimeter designs, and as you can see, this is a gold carbon effect, and you can see it's actually a clear film but just with the gold weave of the carbon printed on. So the first step before actually hydro dipping your parts, you need to give them a key for spraying. So we just lightly rub them down with this sanding pad. You could use a Scotch-Brite pad. I prefer to use these sanding pads, abrasive on one side, and then you've got a spongy foam on the other side. First, we need to prepare all the parts for painting. So this is where the abrasive pad comes in handy. It's same with the plastic parts and with the metal parts. You just want to give them a light rub down with either one of these sanding pads or a Scotch-Brite pad, just so that the surface kind of dulls and you can just see some light marks from sanding, and that'll give it a good key for the paint to stick to. So that's the first stage of prepping the surface for painting. From now on, when you're handling the parts, ideally you want to wear your disposable gloves just to stop any greasy finger marks or anything getting on. So once you've completed that first step, you then need to clean the parts off. So first, I just like to blow the dust off with compressed air. And then after that, you need to clean them up with either some brake cleaner, or you could use some engine degreaser, or you could just put them in the sink with some washing up liquid and clean them that way. But brake cleaner it is for me first. So all those parts are clean enough now to apply the first coat of primer. We're using a grey primer. You can get primer in black and white as well, but our black base coat will cover the grey fine. The first step now is to apply primer, and then once that's dried, apply the base coat, and then after you've done that, you're ready to start hydro dipping. I'm not going to show you the process of applying primer and applying the base coat. I actually did a video during the Intel Nook 9 Extreme project where I went through the basics of painting parts. It's exactly the same process applies here. So if you want to know how to paint, check that video out. I'm going to hit this now with a primer, then come back, do the base coat, and then after that, I'll come back and show you how we hydro dip. That's how your parts should look after they've all been painted. Nice, smooth and even coating. This paint is a matte finish. I'm going to apply a clear lacquer to give it a glossy finish once it's been hydro dipped. So that's those out of the way. So the next step is to cut the film to size. What I'm going to do is cut it to the same dimensions, or more or less the same dimensions of the opening of the tank that I'm using. So that is 350 millimeters by 250. 250 is there. It tends to curl up on itself, this film, as well, so you might want to hold it down with something to stop that happening. I'm just using some bits of old tape. So I've cut that roughly to size. If you've watched any guides or videos on hydro dipping, you might have seen that a lot of people use tape. They tape all the sides up and that kind of holds it in position. I've had some advice from someone who does hydro dipping professionally, and they said it's best not to tape the sides up because it can cause issues when you're actually dipping. What they say to do is to go along the edge and just put some snips in the film. I think this allows it to expand and contract as it should do. So I'll just go around and put some snips down all the edges. And then when you come to actually dipping the film into the water, there's only one way that it should go. So with this film, I don't know whether you can see this, but there's kind of a dull side and the shiny side. This film goes with the shiny side down. Now that might not always be the case, so another tip is to lick both your fingers or wet both of your fingers and just pinch the film, and then whichever side that sticks to your finger, and you can see it's that side with this film, whichever side that sticks to your finger, that wants to face down in the water. So now that we know which way it needs to face down in the water, I'm just gonna fold it and gently crease it across that fold, which should allow me to drop it into the water more carefully and more evenly. I'll bring the tank back in, and you can see the heater's still in there, so just unplug that, remove that heater, that was up to temperature. So until I get my confidence up that I know that I'm going to actually do this right, I'm going to start off with some small things. So I'm going to dip these Corsair Vengeance memory heat spreaders. And what I've done is I've just taped these bits of wire to the back of them, because there's nowhere really to hold on to these while you're dipping. So I just tape those on, and then I should be able to just easily lower those down over the film without getting my fingers and hands in the way. And now get the film and grab it at each corner and just slowly start to lower it into the water. Be very careful and just drop it in. You can move it around on the water, but you need to make sure that you don't let any water go over the top of the film and end up on top of it. It just literally just needs to float in the water. Once the film's in and you're happy with the position, you need to leave it in there for a minute. So that's about a minute up. You can see the film is still floating on the top. It's gone a bit crinkly and wrinkly, but that's exactly what it should do. So now I need to put my mask on. Make sure you've got some good ventilation. I've opened a door and I've got a fan blowing out. So now we need to apply this activator spray. Hold it about 300 ml from the top of the tank, and then just carefully spray it across the film so that it activates the film and it turns from a film into a liquid. So here goes. I think that should be enough. So you can see the film looks like it's expanded a little again. Now we need to take both of these memory modules and lower them down into the film at an angle, very slowly. Then swirl them around. There you go, you can see the gold carbon effect has printed onto the memory modules. Looks pretty good for a first attempt. I'm quite happy with how that's turned out. You can see as well that there's kind of like a slime or a film over the top of this. To get rid of that, we just need to go and rinse them under a cold tap for about 5 minutes, and that should rinse all that slime off, and then you'll be left with just a flat matte finish. So I'll go and rinse these off and come back and show you what they look like. So once you've dipped and rinsed off the parts thoroughly, and it does take a lot of rinsing off, you have to be at it for at least 5 minutes, probably a bit longer. You'll know when you're done because you'll end up with a dull matte finish like you can see on this panel. You could potentially leave it like that if you like that dull matte finish, but I prefer to put a clear coat on afterwards. You can get clear coat in different finishes. You can get a satin finish. I think you can get a matte finish clear coat as well. but I prefer the gloss finish on these, so I've given these parts a couple of coats with the gloss clear coat. You can see, I don't know, looks better. I think it looks better than the matte finish. So you can see that's the panel that covers the Connect unit, and then we've got the memory modules as well. They've all been coated in a clear coat. I will be doing this. I'll be giving that a couple of coats of clear coat. Applying the clear coat is very similar to applying the base coat. Just put it on in quite thin layers. You can go a little bit thicker with the clear coat. The thicker you get it, it tends to have a better glossy finish as well, I've found, but you just have to be careful not to do it too thick so that it runs. And then once you've applied those coats, you need to leave the clear coat for at least 24 hours at room temperature to harden up. Even then it might be a bit soft, you might even still leave fingerprints on it. So you need to give it some time to fully harden. But once it has, once you've got all your parts dipped, rinsed off, clear coat lacquered, then you can start building the system up again, which is exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to start putting these parts all back on the case to see how it looks. So that's it, the case is rebuilt. Looking pretty fine actually, I'm quite happy with how it's turned out. Front panel's been dipped. This panel that houses the Seasonic Connect cable management unit, that's been dipped. I've also Done this bit on the tempered glass panel as well, just this handle that you use to open the system up. That's looking good. And then if you look inside, I've also done the power supply shroud. The way I did that is I just drilled out the rivets that hold it in position. I had to take out a couple of screws at the front. The power supply shroud came out, prepped it, painted it, dipped it, and then you've just seen me fit it back in just by refitting some rivets. I use the rivets again with the black heads, so I'm really happy with how it's looking. I like that black and gold carbon effect. It's going to look really good with the system I've got planned. I'm planning on building an AMD based system. I've not built a full AMD system for a while, so I'm looking forward to that. And it's going to have this black and gold theme running through it. So that is it for this video. That's as far as we go today. In the next part of this video, I'll be building the system, so it'll be just a big build montage. I've got a custom loop planned, hardline custom loop, some custom cable sleeving as well to do, some other bits and bobs that's going to make this system look really sweet, I'm sure. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. I hope you've learnt something. I certainly have. I've definitely got more confident with hydro dipping now. I wouldn't say I perfected it, but I definitely improved from the first couple of dips. There is one or two things to point out. One in particular, if you are thinking of taking up hydro dipping at home as a hobby, the one thing I will say is always make sure you put plenty of Activator spray on, because one of the two of the dips that I didn't apply enough spray to the film, and the film just didn't take to the part that I was trying to dip. You could rub your finger over it and it would literally just peel off. You could see like little air bubbles, and it just didn't look right as soon as you pulled it out of the dipping tank. But so yeah, that is my number one tip. Make sure you buy plenty of Activator spray and put plenty on when you are about to dip. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure you tune in to the next part of this video where I will be building that system. And if you've enjoyed it, make sure you like, subscribe and hit the bell button down below. And also, if you want to help support us in other ways, you can always head over to our store and pick up some KitGuru merch, or you could subscribe to the KitGuru Patreon. And as always, head over to KitGuru.net to catch up on all the latest tech news and all our in-depth hardware reviews. And you can catch up with us through social media such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Discord. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.